In this session, this is a vendor presentation. Whereas previously I talked just about Fusion Debug and the CF8 debugger, this talk is a vendor presentation with the company that makes Fusion Debug and FusionReactor, and that's Integral, which is a German company, although you'll find no German accents. You get the speakers up here today. So the members of the Integral team are David Tattersall on the left, who's the managing director, or what we would call the head cheese or the big boss here in America.
Dog's body.
What?
Dog's body that does everything.
Dog's body. See, that's the non-German accent I was talking about. You'll hear more of those later. And Darren Pywell, who's the CTO. We all know what CTOs are. We have them here in America. And John Hawksley is a senior product engineer. And then Gianna Benson is not here. She's at the booth. So if you guys go down there, you'll see all four of these folks. And my name is Charlie Arehart. I don't work for the company, but I do work with them doing stuff. I'm an independent consultant, and I do a lot of work with different companies. And I love working with these guys, so I was happy to have the opportunity to work with them to help show the things that they're doing currently and the things that are coming in the future. And that's what we want to talk about in this presentation, is give you an introduction to FusionReactor and Fusion Debug, talk about the common question people are asking, what about CF8 and what does that mean? And it's not bad news, there's good stuff, and I've blogged about that previously myself, but we'll talk about that today. And then also, more exciting for some of you, is what's coming in the future. So there's new things coming with both FusionReactor and Fusion Debug, including some new stuff that's neither FusionReactor or Fusion Debug, or things that work with both. Very intriguing stuff. So we're going to talk about those different things, and we're going to hand them off differently among us to talk about these different things. So the first thing we want to talk about is FusionReactor, and so the first discussion of FusionReactor will be from Darren. Now Darren here has they've been talking all week for these 3 days, so they're really losing their voices.
Yeah, my voice is now completely gone.
So
I
apologies.
hope I can turn the microphone so that you guys can hear me.
And I just noticed that these presentations were, because this was the ones that were being set up to demonstrate out there, they're going automatically. So we don't want them to do that. So how could we make them not go automatically?
Okay, so
Yeah, go ahead and do a little bit of introduction.
while Charlie's doing that, I'm going to get a little bit closer to the mic so that you guys can hear me. While Charlie's doing that, I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with what FusionReactor already is. I had a lot of people come up to me on the booth and say, hey, I didn't know that you guys already existed. You can't hear me? I'm sorry. I really apologize for my voice going. Okay.
Well, we have it. It's just it was hard to pass it back and forth. Let's see if it works. Can you go ahead and do both? Or
Well, I can stand by that one.
Okay.
Okay, so FusionReactor is actually a proactive monitor for ColdFusion. What it allows you to do is basically install it and run it on your production servers, and it will monitor your production servers, and if you run into problems on those production servers, it will even try to self-heal those production servers. So it goes a step beyond just monitoring. It's not just watching what's happening on the server and capturing that data for you. It will actually try to rescue the server if it does get into trouble. There's different ways in which you can actually rescue a server. So you can, for example, one of the things that you can do is you can automatically generate a snapshot of the server and mail that off so that you get a track of the memory and the CPU, that you get a look at you get a look into the threads which are actually currently running. That's all good stuff. But FusionReactor goes a lot further than that. It can back up the request. It can actually queue the request for you at that time. It can send out notification over the HTTP channel to your users, and it will let them see that the server is currently under load, basically backing off the requests until the server returns to a normal level. It can do that if the memory is running out. It can do that if there are too many requests. If there are long-running requests, it can automatically kill those requests. So you actually get unattended monitoring. That's the one thing that you really want to have is the 2 o'clock phone call. I'm sure you've all been there. You're looking after the server, the 2 o'clock phone call, or it's 5 o'clock, you're just going home, your husband's prepared tea, or your wife has cooked, whatever, and you're looking forward to seeing your kids, and then all of a sudden, there you go, you get the phone call and your server's actually gone down. FusionReactor also actually doesn't just monitor ColdFusion. It monitors ColdFusion 6, 7, and 8 already. We're already working on all 3 of those products. but it monitors Flex data services, lifecycle data services. It will monitor, in fact, any J2EE engine, so WebSphere, WebLogic, JBoss, any of those engines. So it's not really only about monitoring one kind of server. This is the ability to join all of those servers together, have them in one enterprise dashboard where you can work. You don't basically have to leave that one enterprise dashboard. You can simply work on one enterprise dashboard and get all the metrics, all the data from all the servers that you're using inside one environment. Okay, so there's the enterprise dashboard. And what the enterprise dashboard does is basically gives you a look into the health of a server, any one server, and you can group the servers logically or physically. If a server gets into trouble, then it turns the cube automatically red. Well, first it goes amber, and then it goes red, and then you know you've got a real problem. It'll do that. You can see on the chart here. It'll do that if a server runs out of memory. It'll do that if there are too many processes running on a server. It can do that if you have long-running requests. And you can then teach it to take action. So it's sometimes you have to take your hands off. You can just let it run and see what happens. Maybe it recovers the scenario for you. It's not always the case that you want to jump right in and start to change things with the server. As you can see, you can get also great metrics like the average request time. You can see the instance CPU. As far as I know, FusionReactor is actually the only monitor right now that's monitoring CPU as well as memory and requests. So the CF8 monitors are not doing that. You can get direct insight into the database as well, so you can see what's happening inside your JDBC requests, even down to great details such as the JDBC wrapper will capture every single SQL statement and present those SQL statements in detail so you can see them. And if I get a chance, I'll show you that. Okay, so just a little bit more about crash protection. Basically, as a server gets into trouble, FusionReactor is monitoring it, and it's already giving you kind of warning indicators. The server goes from blue to amber or to orange and says, hey, pay attention, something's not right here on the server, and then it will go to red and let you know that the server has really, really got into trouble. And this time, sure.
You do that at the individual file level. You do that at the file level. There are particular set of files or particular 3 or 4 files that are going to be particular issues.
Okay, yeah. Crash protection can be configured to say, I only want it to work on files under this folder. I want it not to work on these files. You could even configure it down to, I only want it to work on this one file. So there are filters to crash protection to say only to work on this stuff. In future versions, we're going to have multiple crash protection rules, a kind of chain of crash protection rules that allow to say, I want this kind of crash protection on these files. I want this kind of crash protection from these files, and so on. So you're going to be able to fine-tune it to different kinds of files, different kind of folders, that kind of stuff. Does that answer your question? It's okay.
The latter part is, so it's not available right now to define rules for individual files.
You can't define rules for individual files, but you can filter the files the crash protection will work on right now. So, nope, that's in standard edition. Okay, so you can protect your server, as I said, from peak load demand, long-running requests, out-of-memory issues. We're going to be doing some work as well there in the CPU stuff, so it's going to be more and more crash protection features coming. That's really what we're interested in, is letting you guys go home earlier. You know, you don't want to be sitting in front of the server, and if you do get a problem, then hopefully the server can take care of it when FusionReactor is running. So self-healing is, as I've mentioned, is really the key to unattended monitoring. It's not just a matter of the monitor takes care of what's happened on the server, but it really has to take action upon that. It really has to go in and snapshot your server, kill requests, basically block the request and get your server running again. And that's one of the key differentiators, I think, with the stuff that we're doing. Metrics and graphs, we get you a lot of information. We present you a lot of that information. Basically, we're capturing CPU graphs, we're capturing memory graphs, we're capturing a lot of statistics about what's actually happening on your server with throughput. We're now doing stream metrics as well, so how fast the streams are actually responding, how fast the request goes through, the bytes per second, all that kind of stuff. So you're going to be getting a lot more data in future in FusionReactor as well about how well your server's performing on the wire, not just about how well it's performing on requests. And that's an example of the kind of graph that you can get out of it. On this graph, you're able to even go down as you move the mouse over the graph. You can even go down and see the individual data points. FusionReactor will allow you to effectively find a spot where you have perhaps a large amount of memory, and then eventually we're going to let you drill down into that so you can find the individual request that's causing that issue, and that's going to be speeding you up in future. You can see here, you can get a request history, a real easy way to get a request history of all the stuff that's been run on a specific server. And as you get this request history, basically you get an idea of, an instant idea of what's been happening on the server, but you also are able to go through any request that's already been executed and take a look at the details of that request. You can see the HTTP headers for the request. You can already, if the request is through a Flex or a Flash remoting gateway, you can even look at the AMF data. Okay, so you would probably do that over the enterprise dashboard. So you install FusionReactor's agent into each of your servers, and then you join it together in the enterprise dashboard. So the enterprise dashboard allows you to pick servers which are on the same machine, or even servers which are located in different locations, and then you can group them together into one cluster. So as a physical cluster in this particular case, any of those machines have a problem, then the cube would go red. When you click on that one, you'll see the machine that's having a problem out of your cluster, and you can get more details on that. Okay. We do a lot of work on things like the installers. We want it to be easy to install. When the product development team sets off on the next revision, the installer team also sets off on the next revision. As you well know, ColdFusion installs on a hell of a lot of environments. We check about 238 environments when we test FusionReactor, and when we do installs, various combinations of JBoss and Tomcats and all of these different things that you have to do. So the installer guys are extremely busy, and we're always very happy if you send us feedback and let us know if you find an install environment where it doesn't work. That does happen every now and again, but we have full Windows installers, Solaris, Linux, all that kind of stuff. Good stuff. We don't have a Macintosh installer right now. There's also a manual install process, and with the next update, a Macintosh installer is coming. There's a Macintosh installer for Fusion Debug already, and Solaris, etc., but not for FusionReactor. Yeah, and it's a really easy process. Yeah, there's full instructions on the site as well. And if you do have any issues with any of that, then just also mail the guys at support. They're extremely responsive. They will go in. They'll help you find. They really know this stuff. They'll help you find answers to whatever it is that you need. So that's really, really good. If you update your ColdFusion server, you mean? Yep, you shouldn't normally have to do absolutely anything. Usually the configuration that we do is completely, is so isolated from things like Flex, or is so isolated from the updates that ColdFusion does. Like if you do updates, hot fixes and that kind of stuff, there's no changes at all. If you did need to do a change, basically it's going in usually and editing one file. You just have to replace it, an element into one file, and that's a part of the manual install procedure, or you can rerun the installer. So the installer can be rerun as well. Okay. Benefits. So really the benefits of FusionReactor are all about keeping control of your servers and responding in critical conditions. It is, if you have one outage, if you think about it, if you just have one outage, the money that you can save if the server recovers itself, if it takes that step for you, or if a lot of people actually who take FusionReactor, they'll come, we'll get support calls and people will say, hey, we're using FusionReactor, it's really great, it's been taking care of these situations for us for a long time, it's been killing these requests when we've had trouble. And one of the things that we always say is, well, take the next step, and that's actually look at what the problem is that FusionReactor is telling you about, and go fix that problem. Won't have to go kill the requests for you anymore. And it's not just about actually letting it deal with the issues, but if you take the next step and actually deal with the issue too, you'll get a much more stable ColdFusion server, and that's going to be good for you, and it's going to be good for us at the end of the day. If you have any issues with things like the stack traces, I know reading stack traces is a black art, and everybody comes and says, oh, I don't want to have to look at that, and I really understand it. Mail the stack trace to the support guys, say, can you shed some light on what is going on there, and I guarantee you'll get an answer. We're in Germany, so you have to excuse the fact that sometimes we might be in bed. Hopefully our servers are being unattended monitored, so we don't have to get up, but if we're in bed, then it could be that you'll get a response the next day, but okay, they're very, very responsive, and they really do understand what's going off inside there. There is actually a bunch of other features inside FusionReactor, things like compression, which is one of the ways in which you can speed up a server. People often forget that the browsers out there are actually able to support compression. FusionReactor will only compress requests if the browser accepts compressed data. And if you compress HTML, for example, you can go from, who knows, maybe 60, 70, 80%, even more. That means there's a lot less traveling down the wire, and it responds a lot quicker. There's always a trade-off. You get nothing for nothing, so the trade-off is you need a little bit more CPU. It does. It actually takes the request stream on the fly. As it's going down, it compresses it and sends it on. So effectively, FusionReactor is watching all the bytes that go down when you turn compression on, and will compress them on the fly and send them to the client. And I think that's a good point, because what we're seeing is that FusionReactor is not just about monitoring. It's much more proactive than that. It's about, we see people who have bandwidth problems, and they turn on compression to solve bandwidth issues. And maybe, they have to do some replumbing on their network, so they have, they might turn on compression for a month, and then they turn it back off again. Most people turn it on and then leave it on because they, it just works, and then they say, actually, it was a good thing to do. So, it's about solving things. Another feature that we have, and in fact, Charlie's asked me this a number of times. He says, you have a feature which is called content filtering, and he said, what do you use that for? And the answer is actually system administrators. They love that feature. What they do is they get links that are broken, and they insert the broken link, and they can insert a replacement link, and the content filter will take the link that's broken. If it sees it going down, it will actually replace it with the fixed link on the fly. So what you're able to do is fix up links until your CF guy comes along and fixes the problem inside your code. Okay. I'm sorry.
Use the comments.
Is bad. You want to watch out for table hands.
Return type array like we